Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Crafty Quinn. I am so excited to bring some DIY Hobby Lobby dupes for you today using mostly Dollar Tree items, and I'm just so excited to be able to be back making content for you guys after a brief break. So just diving right in here, this is what I saw at Hobby Lobby recently, this cute little house, originally $7.99, and it's not necessarily about being able to make this item for cheaper, but really just because I enjoy making dupes and I wanted to really see if I could do it. So that is kind of why I like doing it, and just kind of more like let's try and see what happens. So this is a little house shaped decor sign from Dollar Tree. They have these every so often, and so this my husband's actually doing the drilling part for me. He volunteered so that I could hold the camera, but you're going to need to drill a hole just in the very top corner of this, and you can make the size of it however big you want. If you want to use maybe thicker twine or smaller twine. I have kind of thin twine, so I didn't have to make the hole very large. So I did use my hairdryer on this a lot. I cranked up the heat, and that really helped me get the rest of these flower pieces off of this. And then I'm using my Cricut tool scraper, and this is actually from Dollar Tree, and I'm just scraping off the residual pieces of this. And that wasn't enough to get it flat enough, so I did go back and use my finger sander just one more time to make sure that it was mostly flat before I started to paint this. So we're using Waverly Chalk ink paint, but it is more of a acrylic paint rather than a chalk paint. So I'm not really sure why it's labeled chalk, but when you actually use it, you can kind of tell that this is not a chalk paint necessarily. It's just because it comes out in a matte finish. But I love using this color. It's very, I will say, it covers it completely. So oftentimes I don't have to use 2 coats, but for this, I am putting 2 coats on this house because after the first coat, I noticed that I could still see the letters underneath. So I coated this house completely in black, and then I used this font off of my Cricut. I'm trying to remember what the font was called. I'll have to put it down in my description box, but I really just looked to see if there was any like kind of cursive lettering to see if it would be close enough to the original, but you know, it doesn't have to be quite exactly like the original, like I said. So when I make dupes, I kind of take some creative freedom with them. So I really liked the way this font came out, and this was one of the fonts that was just in the system, so it was a free font. So I oftentimes look and see if there's any free fonts available first before I jump over to the section where you would have to pay for them. So you're just going to take some jute twine and just kind of tie a knot at the top, and that's how I got the beaded part to stay in place. And because I only have to paint 3 beads, I just painted them by hand, just took my little paintbrush, taking that same color that I used for the house, and I just kind of painted it like that. And then I did the same thing for the other 2 beads. I'm using Waverly Plaster. I didn't use a stark white for any of my projects today, so it's kind of it's a bit of an off-white, but I really like the Waverly Plaster color. So this project requires 2 plaster color beads and then 1 just black bead to have as the middle piece. So I put that one on first. I have that knot tied there, and you'll notice I do have 2 strings there, but I am going to cut off the other one, and then you just feed that through the twine. These beads I got from a beaded pack from Michael's with at least 3 or 4 different sizes in them. So once that edge was cut off, I did kind of first take it apart because I was like, oh, you know, maybe give it a frayed edge, let's see how that looks. But then eventually I decided to keep it more like the original and turn that end piece into the loop just like they had. So this is how it turned out, and I don't know, I just think it's a really modern farmhouse neutral piece, so that's what kind of drew me into wanting to make this. So like I said, this was originally about $8, so I think I definitely spent less than that based on what I already had available at my house. So this frame, I was in love with this frame. This frame is originally $20 from Hobby Lobby. Came across this, snapped a photo of it, and I was like, I really think I can make this. But I loved the style of it. So we're going to go ahead and use the largest size canvas that Dollar Tree has in its painting section. And I wish I knew off the top of my head what size this is, but just know that it is the largest canvas size that they normally have available. Oftentimes my Dollar Tree only has the small ones that are kind of more like a 4x6 kind of shape, but this one is the largest one that they have available for canvases. So it can be a little bit tricky to get the canvas off of these, but you know, you can just take a staple remover, you can just take your scissors and just kind of like lift that staple out. But otherwise, I just kind of pull it off myself. I don't really have any other issues, but if it is giving me trouble, I just kind of lift it with my scissors a little bit. But most times it just pops right off. So once the canvas is completely off the frame, we're gonna go ahead and cover this completely in that same plaster color. That was kind of the running theme of colors that I was using for this. And this is a Dollar Tree 4x6 frame. I chose this one with the wood grain because it looked kind of similar to the one that they have. The frame of that photo frame is it can hold a 4x6 photo, so I was staying true to the original in that sense. So this frame, because it was such a dark brown color, I did need 2 coats of the plaster paint to cover it. So it needed a cardboard backing, and really I just traced along the edge of that 4x6 frame, but I needed to also focus on the inner part of it just to make sure that the frame itself wasn't going to pop out. So you don't want to cut it around the frame, you want to cut it around the inner part of the frame, if that makes sense. So I'm using an X-Acto knife for this. So all of the lines you can see there, that is where I just drew the original shape of the frame itself, and then this is the inner part that I drew from the inside. So all this takes is some hot glue to secure the cardboard to the canvas. And that was all it needed to hold it in place. So then you have your backing and you are getting ready to put your beads into place. So for this first one, just to make it easier, I glued all of these beads together. These beads are the largest size beads that I have from that multi-pack from Michaels. The multi-pack is originally about $10, and I actually had the exact number of beads that I needed left in my multi-pack for this project, so it was I just got extremely lucky, I'll put it that way. So to make sure that it was going to line up properly, I did put a bead on each side just at the very bottom there, but I wanted to make sure that it was definitely going to be, I guess the space for the rest of the beads to go were going to be perfect. So that's how I kind of use that to kind of align the frame. And then you can just start to glue in your beads. Sometimes I didn't need to glue down the beads, but oftentimes they did have to be glued down. So I grabbed a tassel from a previous project for this first one. And really I kind of cut off the very edge of the tassel and just tied a knot a bunch of times, and then I put some glue inside the bead and just kind of, that's what made the twine stick inside of the bead. So as you can tell, I did tie a knot a bunch of times after I fed that tassel through the bead. And then as you can tell, I'm literally just putting glue inside of the bead, and that's what holds it in place. After that knot has been established, you're just going to push it down right there and just make sure that you don't have too much sticking out. I did have to use a pen a little bit. The other one worked out a lot better because I think I made this knot a little bit too big. But I just used a pen to push it down, and then whatever is left as the excess, you can just cut that off. And then you're just going to want to feed that through and just fit it into place. So it definitely took a lot of just kind of playing around with the beads just to kind of see, you know, do I need to put them like upside down or like horizontally, vertically, you know, and just, they will fit perfectly if you just kind of mess around with the different ways that you're placing them inside the frames. And then once this was done, I put the original backing of that 4x6 frame back into this, and that is what gave my frame the frame stand. So it was definitely a little bit shorter than you would typically need for a frame this size, but it just kind of makes the frame, I guess, kind of hang back a little bit, like lean back. But otherwise you can make a longer frame stand if you want, so it doesn't have to lean back as much when you actually sit it upright. But this is how it turned out, and I decided to make it very different from the original, but I also liked the direction that I took with it. So I have no regrets here, and hey, if I want to paint it, I can definitely go back and do that. So this is just your midway reminder to subscribe. Make sure you're hitting the like button, commenting. It really helps my video do well, and then that in turn helps my channel grow. So thank you guys so much for watching, and let's head to the next craft. So this was another small size decor piece from Hobby Lobby. I think this was also about $8. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I can definitely make this with some Dollar Tree items. And what's great is that Dollar Tree came out with this wood piece kind of recently, and it already has the twine on it to hang it, so that was perfect. And then just the wood slats just made it very similar to the piece that I was trying to dupe, so I was like, okay, I have to use this. And originally I grabbed 4 of these because I was going to make a vase, but this was much better. So I'm taking that same Waverly plaster color, and I used a tiny brush to paint the slats in between, and then now I'm taking that same black color from the other crafts, and I'm just taking a very, very tiny brush and just kind of making dots because I'm trying to make it look like nails, just like on that original decor piece that I'm duping. So to make the house in the middle, I just took popsicle sticks, and these are Dollar Tree popsicle sticks, and they actually, you know, they're so easy to cut, so you can make the house whatever size you want, you know, like I just kind of did it so it took up most of the wood slat. And then you can just mess around with it until it's where you like it, because these popsicle sticks were just so easy to cut. You just kind of cut the sticks on an angle, and then you just keep cutting things down until everything is just to your liking. And I made sure that no wood pieces were kind of sticking out on either side of that roof. So once everything is hot glued down, that's when you're going to want to paint it. So I painted it all black, and then I did go through with that plaster color, and I used this stencil brush to distress it. I didn't like how like stark black it came out, so I just felt like it needed something to look a little bit more faded and not so bright. So I'm going to use rub-on transfers as my pieces for the middle, and in that same rub-on transfer sticker pack from Dollar Tree, I am using the cardstock backing, and it definitely was a money saver, but also it was just the perfect material for the backing of this frame. And then I just picked out some words that kind of went with like home and family, and I just kind of aligned them up beforehand to see what all would fit in there. I love these rub-on transfers. They have these same ones at Dollar Tree every so often. Sometimes they run out, sometimes they get them back a few months later. I just found this recently, and if you do see these in your Dollar Tree, definitely pick them up, because that home word right there in that cursive font is very similar to the same cursive font that Hobby Lobby uses on a lot of its decor pieces. So that was actually the original reason why I picked that rub-on transfer. So you just hot glue it down, and that's really all there is to it. So this was my take on that Hobby Lobby home sign. So I love how this turned out. And here's how it looks when compared with the original. I feel like it's very close. maybe I'm just saying that, but I love the way it turned out. So this one, I really thought that this was a Hobby Lobby item, and then I went back through my phone because I snapped a picture of it, and I realized it came from a website. So I'm going to link that website where it came from originally, because I don't know why I thought it was from Hobby Lobby. I had it on my phone for so long and I wanted to dupe it, and I took it around this. I took a picture of it at the same time I took a picture of the other Hobby Lobby items. So I thought it was one of them, but it's not. So I'm going to make sure that website gets the credit it deserves from where I got that photo from. So I will make sure to link that down for you below if you want to buy one of those versus make one of your own. So it was very, very cute. I knew I had to dupe it. So the house that you can see I'm painting with that plaster chalk paint is one of those Dollar Tree beach houses, and they should be out in stores right now. I know some Dollar Trees are getting their beach decor already, and that is where you can find them. They're with the Shore Living decor line that's out now. So this is a farm stencil, and I'm using my foam brush, dabbing that paint, and I was originally going to use tape to make these little doors, but I picked up this barn stencil recently for another project that I have planned in the future, and then I realized it had the exact same barn shape that I was going to make, and I was like, I'll just use this stencil. But otherwise, you can totally do this with thin pieces of maybe painter's tape or masking tape, and you can make the exact same design. So I kind of took the easier route because I had this stencil already, and it just worked out. So I'm just taking a foam brush for this, and I'm just dabbing it, and this actually worked out really well. It didn't run or leak. I mean, I feel like it did a way better job than I was expecting, and I just kind of taped it in place using masking tape and just dabbed it until it got fully in each little triangle piece. So I repeated that process 4 more times. These little barn doors in this stencil were just so small that I had to do this a bunch more times to take up more of the sign, because when I did the one, I was like, oh, that's not enough. So I did use a ruler and just measure to see how far in each door was, and then that's kind of how I got the alignment, but I had to do a lot of measuring with my ruler. And then the top of this stencil had a tiny little window stencil inside of that barn, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. But then I made the window, and I was like, oh wait, this is very tiny. So I was like, okay, I'll make 2 windows. And then when I made the 2 windows, I realized it was not enough. So I went back and I added a 3rd window. And then I just cleaned up the edges where I got any black paint by mistake. So I went back with the tiny brush and did that. And then what you see me doing now is I had to go back and use some antique wax on that part that I accidentally used my finger sander on, just to make sure that it was perfectly even. So then I stained it all. I stained the whole roof with a dark stain with the antique Waverly wax stain. And I love that brown stain, and I use it on a lot of projects. So the edge that you can see here to the left, I did go back and I painted that white as well. So this is the end result. So not a Hobby Lobby dupe, I'm so sorry, but I love the way this turned out, so I decided to include it anyway. So this is how it looks compared to the original. Go check out the website if you want to buy one of those for yourself. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want to check out more videos, watch them here on the left, and let's keep in touch on Instagram. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and see you next week.